up, everybody? Good to be back here. Forge Your Path podcast episode number 6. And this is an interesting one for me this week because it's fundamentally different than anything I've ever done and talked about. But look, that's what this is all about. Obviously, I'm somebody who has not mastered life. Learning just like all of you are. And so on my journey, I thought this was a really important one to share because while I am a teacher, while I am a coach, and certainly somebody that is helping others to be able to achieve their dreams and build the mindset, build the right habits, achieve goals in their own lives, I'm doing my own work as well. And I'm always doing my searching to try to learn. And it's a fundamental part of the process. So I ran across something in the last week that really hit me like a ton of bricks. So I had to jump in and share it today. So right next to me here, I've got The Breakthrough Experience by Dr. John Demartini. And I ran across Demartini probably for the first time, I'd say almost a little over a year ago. It was late fall 2021, and I learned more about what's called neuro-linguistic programming. And I learned about what's called timeline therapy, which is the process of essentially processing emotions and the ability to let go of things holding you back: fear, sadness, anger, guilt, a lot of the negative emotions that anchor us. And he's got a really powerful process around letting those emotions go by essentially going through what's called a timeline process. So not to get too deep into that specifically, because that's not what this is about today. I'd heard about Demartini through a workshop I took to learn more about neuro-linguistic programming and timeline therapy. So I heard the name and I decided to come back to it and read a little bit more about him and read some of his books. The fall of 2022. And I read one of his books, was pretty into it, put it aside. And then I picked this up right before the new year, turning into 2023. And so here's the one that hit me. So I would say for the majority of my life, I've always considered myself to be a positive person. So in that self-identification of being positive, what does that mean? That means I'm always actively striving to be positive internally. I'm striving to find the positive in situations, and I'm striving to try to help others by projecting a positive image, by helping them with support when I see it, by helping them to see the positive in different situations. And so I think a lot of things that goes with that positivity are other core attributes. So one of those is gratitude. I'm a firm believer that if you want to live a better life, if you want to live a more fulfilled life, you've got to be grateful. And every single day, I build in practices that help me cultivate that gratitude. The first thing when I wake up in the morning, one of my habits is I think of 3 things that I'm grateful for in the coming day. They may not be monumental, they might be tiny, but I'm training my brain to point towards the good things in life. So gratitude's been a big portion of what I try to focus on in my daily life, and it's a value that I hold dear. But here's what hit me like a ton of bricks in reading Demartini. So I'm going through the book, and I'm essentially, I don't know, 4 or 5 chapters in, and this was the eye-opener for me. I've always cultivated this gratitude as I look for what I perceive to be the good things in my life: family, financial abundance, basic essentials, shelter, food, relationships, social life, fun, the weather, whatever it's going to be. I'm always looking towards those little and big things and trying to appreciate it. But what I have never done, absolutely never done in my life, is to consistently focus on every experience and having gratitude for it. So in short, if I perceive something to be bad, I'm not grateful for it. If something is at that time considered to be frustrating, something that causes me sadness, something that causes me anger, something that causes me guilt, or just something that is a friction of some kind, I'm not grateful for those things. Those are things that put me in the wrong state. And I work as hard as I can to try to suppress those or process them through and try to ignore them. And when I do feel feelings of negativity, oftentimes my MO in the last decade or two has been to try to ignore it, to try to push it to the side, and then figure out something positive to focus on. And what I came to in reading this book is that perhaps that is a flawed strategy. Now, I did say some things in there that are important distinctions. I do think it's important to be able to process those negative experiences and emotions and then bring yourself back to positivity. But what Demartini says, and again, it's kind of got my mind blown, is that a truly grateful person is not just grateful for these so-called positive experiences. They're grateful for all of it. They're grateful for all of it. Because when you take that approach, when you actually have true gratitude, you are a balanced person. Because every single experience doesn't get judged in this binary good-bad dynamic. Instead, it's realizing there's a duality of life. It's recognizing there's a balance in all things. So at the moment of something that might be a perceived crisis, where someone cuts you off in traffic, or you get a cold, or you get COVID, or perhaps it's something more significant, where I think back about my career. And at the time, one of the most challenging moments of my career, where I thought it was going to be my moment where I was going to step forward and what I've been working for a decade to become that, have the opportunity to become a school leader and to be the head of the middle school where I was working. I found out the opposite, that I was not indeed the next head of the middle school. And in fact, that someone else had been placed in that position. At that time, that was a debilitating moment. And I saw it as such. And not only that, as I moved into a new phase of my career, as I left education, formal education, to move to the business world, I carried that negative emotion of frustration, of resentment, and feeling as though I'd lost something for years. What it's taken me years to realize is that that was a gift. And if I, at the time, could have moved through and processed that more quickly and realized that perhaps there was a lesson to learn and that there was a door to be opened, and perhaps there was some feedback I needed to, and basically be able to inherit an experience I needed to process to get me through to my next stage of my career and life, then that process would have been sped up. It wouldn't have taken years. It wouldn't have taken months, maybe perhaps in even weeks, days, or moments. I would have seen that gift and I would have accelerated my progress so much quicker. So here's the challenge for you today. Here's the challenge for me as I'm recording this here on this particular Sunday. Can you and can I not only be grateful for the so-called perceived great things in our life, can we be grateful for it all? And as we go into each day, take the opportunity for when friction comes up or when these moments come up that were not scripted, can we look for the lesson? Can we look for the learning that as soon as we're able to process it, and as soon as we're able to incorporate that into who we are, bring us into balance and bring us into that next stage of our own growth. So I know this is a quick one today. It's a short one today. And as I think about this and as I go forward, instead of being the positive guy that I thought I was for that stretch of time, the truth is I wasn't that positive because I was only looking for the stuff that I thought was good and I was dismissing everything else. And sometimes that effort to pull or to lift or to carry this positivity at all times wasn't necessarily the right approach, because then when the pendulum did swing back, then I didn't acknowledge that I was frustrated or sad or angry. And having those emotions are absolutely fine. It's what we do with them. It's what we can do in those experiences to process them through, to learn something from it, and then get us to that place of balance where we realize that whatever that evoked in us is a gift. Because if we allow it to, it brings us back to that center place where we're able to keep moving forward, to keep growing and evolving as our best self. So as I go forward and as I think about gratitude, as I think about positivity, part of my new lens is now thinking about how I can accept and process all experiences, not just the perceived good ones, so that I can actually start incorporating my lessons quicker in my life. And as I approach this day, this week, this month, this year, I can start looking for the gift in everything, not just the good stuff. So thanks for listening today. I hope that hit you and served in some way, that perhaps you're grappling with that so-called negative experience or emotion or action. And now with that perspective, just maybe you can have a little bit of grace and a little bit of self-reflection to think about, is there a lesson here? Is there an opportunity not to judge it as a bad experience, but perhaps something to learn from? And I think the sooner you can get to that place, the sooner I can consistently get to that place, then perhaps I will be that person that is truly more what one could call positive or centered, because I'm accepting it all, not just the stuff that I deem to live in a certain box. So thanks for listening today. And if this hit you well and you found it valuable, please keep sharing the word, keep spreading the word on this podcast, because it's exciting to keep getting the feedback, and it's exciting to keep expanding our base and have more and more people in the conversation. Have a great day and an outstanding week. Thank you for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed it, please share it on social media. Also, if you're interested in learning more about my coaching programs, please see the show notes for the link to my website. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.